Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today for our last 30 on Thursday webinar of 2017, Microsoft Flow Business Process Automation Without Developer Intervention. Just a little bit about Protiviti before we get started. We are consulting solutions in finance, technology operations, data analytics, governance, risk, and internal audit to our clients through our network of more than 70 offices in over 20 countries. Our full-service software solutions team provides consulting and on-demand support for SharePoint, Office 365, Salesforce, Nintex, Sitecore, Kentico, SQL, and .NET. Our 30 on Thursday webinar series is a bi-weekly webinar series where we talk all things software solutions. Our next webinar will be on January 18th, where we will be talking about how to automate sales and contracting processes with Nintex and Salesforce. You can register for that webinar and see our full event schedule at ecm.protiviti.com. We are hosting Microsoft Cloud GDPR roundtables in a city near you in January and February, where we will be discussing how to use the Microsoft Cloud capabilities to help you comply with GDPR. If you're interested in attending any of these events, you can learn more and register at ecm.protiviti.com/events. We are hosting our own technology collaboration conference in May in Virginia. The first 75 registrants receive an Amazon Echo Dot, so make sure to register today at procollabcon.com. We will be featuring topics such as Office 365, SharePoint for GRC, business automation, usability and accessibility, public-facing websites, hybrid solutions, and much more. If you're interested in learning more about this conference, visit procollabcon.com. Today's session is being recorded. You can access the recording of today's session on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ProtivitiSP. For all questions during today's presentation, please insert them in the question window, or you can live tweet us your questions using the hashtag 30tflow. We will be saving all the questions until after Maggie's presentation today. Today's presenter is Maggie Swearingen, Associate Director here at Protiviti and our resident user experience expert. And I am Julia Marple, and I will be moderating today's session. All right, Maggie, I will turn it over to you.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. Happy holidays, and I hope you're having a great end to your year. This session is about Microsoft Flow. It is very much meant to be an introductory session. So if you're not familiar with Flow at all, or if you just barely have heard of it, this is the session for you. If you're looking for somebody to create very complex workflows for you that integrate with dozens of third-party systems, then you should absolutely join us for our next 30 on Thursday webinar, where we'll focus on those more heavy workflows, leveraging some external party tools. Flow is built into Office 365, so it's available for any Office 365 user, and users can use it to automate their own personal business processes. So let's take a quick look right now at some of the features in Microsoft Flow. Microsoft Flow is designed to help non-developers work more efficiently by enabling simple workflow creation. So we'll walk through a couple of very simple workflows today, and you'll see how they could potentially get even more complex. But it really puts in the hands of the end user the ability to do some very simple things that people are constantly wondering if you can do. Think about Flow as a tool to flow information back and forth between systems, either within Office 365 or with some separate third-party connectors. You might have also heard of Logic Apps if you're familiar with Flow. Logic Apps is an extension, and it really is geared at IT professionals and developers. So it has deeper Azure integration, It's far more complicated from a code perspective, and it would be the alternative or the build upon if you weren't able to complete what you needed to complete in using Flow. Flow is very much designed for business users and end users, and you'll see in a moment just how easy it is to actually set up a Flow template. So I did mention that there are some third-party applications that we can connect to from Flow. You can see a sample of them here, but there are actually many, many more. Ones that are probably of interest to many of you who've joined us today would be Dropbox, Salesforce, potentially Twitter. There are all sorts of business use cases for this, and if nothing else, it makes approvals and notifications. It puts them right at your fingertips. We'll actually take a look at an example in just a minute here using DocuSign. So this session is really meant to be a demo. I don't want to bore you with slides, so we're going to escape out here and head over to the Microsoft Flow site. If you go to flow.microsoft.com and sign up, you'll be on their mailing list. It's actually, I wouldn't typically recommend that people join mailing lists. However, I have received emails with very useful tips. It highlights new templates that have been deployed that are out each week. So it is a very useful website from a learning perspective. I think like many applications in Office 365, Flow debuted last year. It's right about at its year point. Kind of came out around Ignite last year. By now, it's definitely matured a lot more. If we had gone and had this session last December, it probably wouldn't have been nearly as useful for a lot of you as it is going forward. Let's take a quick look here at some of the templates that are available to us. So the Microsoft community and Microsoft itself have produced a lot of Flow templates that are right here at our fingertips. And so for those of us who are not developers, we can actually go take a look at these templates and see what's already out there. These templates are very configurable. So and then if you don't want to start fresh and completely make your own template, I would encourage that you take a look at what's out there and then configure it to do what you need to do. And you can see here that there's a wide variety, everything from moving attachments to a SharePoint library, which is something that people want to do all the time and has never been particularly easy, to adding approvals, and as I mentioned before, to even getting email signatures. Two very realistic use cases for using Flow in an Office 365 environment are if your organization is using Dropbox for some reason. So we have a lot of organizations that are using Dropbox for an external communication source so that, vendors or members of the team who are outside of the organization for whatever reason can easily access. But let's say we really want that knowledge to be pulled into our environment, so it's not just sitting out there, in a potentially unvetted Dropbox environment. We can actually leverage Flow to do that. Same with Google Drive and same with Box. So any of those external applications that you're using to house large documents, we can actually bring them in, whether it's to a SharePoint site, whether it's to a user's OneDrive for Business, and we can set up a Flow to do all of those things. Really quickly, I'm going to walk you through a couple of flows that I've set up, and we'll talk about the business case for those, and then we'll go through and set up our own flow. So when I'm up here on my flow menu, you can see that I have flows of my own and flows that are assigned to my team. If I wanted to invite additional members to my flow, additional owners, they would show up on team flows because then we become a team who manages the flow. But these are just mine. Many of them are really meant to have some sort of personal connection to me. So whether it's, taking attachments from emails and pushing them into folders, whether it's notifying me when my boss emails me with a push text notification, whatever the case may be, these do tend to be more personalized than a lot of business process workflows. And I think that is something that's a differentiator in using flow versus when you might go ahead and do a more sophisticated workflow, leveraging some sort of third-party application or leveraging developer intervention. These tend to focus on you as the individual and moving your content around. So we'll take a quick look at this one right here. This is a very simple flow, and I'm going to go ahead and edit it so we can take a look at it. This flow is designed so that when an email in my inbox is flagged simply by using the simple email inbox flag, that it actually goes over to my planner and it creates a task for me in my planner. And I can even do the default start date time. If you take a look here, anything that starts out with an email, you can assign a folder. So in this case, I just wanted it to be my inbox. I want anything that's in my inbox that I've flagged, I want them to go over onto my plan to be a task that I need to complete at some point this week. That helps me manage my inbox so I know exactly what I need to follow up on. I have this configured to not necessarily require that it has an attachment or not necessarily include the attachment, but you could certainly change those configurations. You could also add it to be more specific. So let's say I wanted it to be when it's flagged and when Julia sends it to me. If it's just flagged, perhaps it's not something that I care to follow up on necessarily in my planner. Here in your little plus sign, this is a template, and I used a template here to do this flow. But let's say I wanted to make it a little bit more complicated. I can always click my plus sign, and I can choose to add an action or a condition that would change the flow. So in this case, let's say I get an email in my inbox. Right now it's going and getting my profile, and then it's creating a task. That's what it's doing. It's very, very simple. But let's say I want to add a condition to that. So not only do I want it to be an email that comes into my inbox, but it also has to contain in the body of the message the word help. So I've taken a template and I've added a condition. And the condition is going to be that if the body contains help, I'm going to do an action. And I can choose from any of my various connectors and actions. There really are literally hundreds here, and they're adding more and more every day. So you might come and look at this after this webinar and not find an action that you were hoping to find, and then you can easily find one within a couple weeks. People are adding things all the time. And you can see that these are connecting to very, very interesting third-party applications also. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to select, let's do something really quick here. I'm going to go ahead and create a folder in my OneDrive, just at the root. And it's going to be named with the subject of the email, and the file content is going to be the body of the email. And then I can update my flow. And if the answer is no, then I'm not going to let anything happen. So now I have a couple things happening. I have an email coming into my inbox. I have a condition that the body needs to contain help. If it does contain help, then I'm going to create a file, and I'm also going to create a task. Okay? That's probably not the most realistic use case, but you can see exactly how easy it is to edit and to run a flow. I'm going to go ahead and click Done there right now. What I love about this interface is you can very easily figure out if your flow has not run successfully. The templates run successfully nearly all the time. Anytime you try to tweak, you probably are going to have to do a little testing with it. There's obviously some configuration that you're going to have to do, and it's pretty straightforward configuration typically, but it is out there. Once you click in, actually, you get some information about each little piece, if something had failed here, I would have learned which step it fails on. I will tell you, something that I don't love about it is that it will tell you that it failed, and it will send you to an article about a bunch of different reasons why it might have failed, but you don't know the exact reason why it failed. There's a list of about 25 reasons. So unless you're very, very good at pinpointing which of those 25 reasons it is, I find that that aspect of it still needs improvement because it's hard to pinpoint exactly what you didn't configure correctly in your flow. So I'm going to go up here to my templates, actually, and we're going to set up a pretty simple one. And Julia, I need your help for this. So when I tell you, I'm going to need you to send me an email with an email attachment. So I use this flow all the time. I have, particularly with client emails, I've actually set up several different versions of it that go to different folders in my OneDrive. When attachments from different clients come in, I want those attachments, no matter what they are, to go to my folders in my OneDrive. Yes, they'll still be in my Outlook, but I want to send them to my OneDrive so that I have those attachments later on. So I'm going to go here, and you can see, since I'm authenticated, it went ahead and it found my authentication. If I needed to authenticate to a third-party application, a Dropbox, a DocuSign, whatever it would be, it actually prompts you here to go ahead and log in to that application and authenticate. Then it saves it pretty well going forward, so you shouldn't have to do that very frequently. So that was it. That was one step, and I set up my flow, and when Julia sends me an email, it will send me an attachment. But let's say that's not exactly what I want it to do. So I'm going to come here, and I'm going to take a look at it, and it's not an email necessarily. So the way that this flow is set up, it's an email from anybody with an attachment, and what it's going to do is it's going to create a file here in a new folder in my OneDrive called Email Attachments with Flow. That's all well and good, but for a lot of us, we really want it to be a little bit more specific than that to make it more useful from a business standpoint. So what I'm going to say here is, in my email from Julia Marple at Protiviti. Yes, it has an attachment. Yes, okay, great. And actually, I'm going to select what folder I want it to go in because Julia is my client, and so I need her content to go into a specific folder based on who she is as a client. So I'm going to scroll down here, and Julia is with factbook.org, so that's great. So now I'm going to save my flow. Now, when Julia sends me an email with an attachment, I'm going to get the email, but the attachment is also going to go into my Factbook file in my OneDrive so that I don't even have to right-click on it and save as. It's already saved up there in my file. So Julia, would you mind sending me a quick email?
Just did.
Great. So I'll come over here to, oh, there we are. Okay, so there's my one-pager that's been attached. Super, and you can see that I could absolutely, right-click on it, save to my OneDrive, but I'm gonna save myself a whole step for that. So let's go back over here to my flows, and let's just make sure this flow ran. Yep, it did, and it succeeded. Fantastic. So let's go over here and look at my files, and I'm going to scroll down here to Factbook, and let's sort here by reverse chronological order. And there's our OPMI PDF that came right in. Super, super easy and a very good business use case for a lot of us. I'm going to show you one more quick flow before we switch to some questions. Fantastic use case for this one. So I've gone ahead here and I've set it up in advance, and we're just going to walk through it and show that it works actually. So very often, and I'm sure many of you do too, I deal with contracts. And I have contracts going back and forth, and I need to send things out for signature, And I have a contract management and agreement management folder in my OneDrive to help facilitate that process. But wouldn't it be great if I could save myself a couple of clicks and a couple of integration points? And so I can do that very, very easily. I've actually gone ahead and set up a flow here that says when a file is created in my contract management folder, to go ahead and to send out an email with it via DocuSign. So I set up my vendor agreement in my folder, I use my templates, I save it, it automatically will send an email to the person I need it to go to based on my settings in my DocuSign, and it'll head out to that vendor for their signature. So it saved me about 5 steps going back and forth between 2 applications. All I actually had to do was go through and create a document in my OneDrive. And you can see the way I have this set up here. I'm doing it in my customer agreements folder, and I've set up a template with my DocuSign information and who I need it to go out as a signer to. And so you could set up several of these if you're setting up agreements for different clients or different vendors and do it in using different folders. So let's take a look at this one in action and see how it works. I'm going to go back up here to my files, and that OneDrive was saying in my customer agreements folder, anything that's new. So we'll go there really quickly. We're going to go to new Word document here. Never fails during a live demo that your internet starts working slowly. So let's give this a minute here, and we'll go back over to our OneDrive. Oh, not entirely sure why that stopped working. I'll tell you what we'll do. Since it seems to have kicked me off or kicked me out for some reason, I will coordinate with Julia, and we'll record a quick addendum to this webinar so that we can show you exactly how that flow works. But it's a very, very practical use case for this application, and one that makes a lot of sense to people. Like any other one, you can certainly add conditions, add new steps. What I tend to do is I start with the templates because they are vetted and they do work, and then I add my conditions and configuration on top of that. And most of the time that has met my needs. I haven't created a flow yet where I've had to go out to a developer for assistance. So with that, we have a couple minutes left. Julia, I'll turn it over to you. Do you have any questions from the group?
Yeah, we have a couple. Please insert your questions in the question window, and we can get those to Maggie now. We had a question about the recording. The recording will be posted on our YouTube channel. I will be following up with all the attendees with the link to the recording. Someone would like to know, can you do wildcards in the from to do a company type of thing, like an @contoso.com, so that anything from a certain organization goes to OneDrive?
Yes, you can.
Okay. And then how does the complexities of Flow compare to the complexities of Nintex workflow?
So Flow is a lightweight application. It is designed, as I mentioned, to really have a personal aspect. There are a lot of notifications in it. It facilitates approvals. For approval of anything coming in or out of your Office 365 environment, or even potentially going into a SharePoint site, you'll want to take a look at Flow first and see if it meets your needs. Setting up a Flow approval workflow is much easier than setting up an out-of-the-box SharePoint workflow. That being said, the power of Nintex is that it enables you to connect with some very sophisticated third-party applications from a variety of ways. with its very simple user interface. Flow is going to let you connect with DocuSign. It's going to let you select a template to create a document from, but then that's pretty much where it ends, and anything more sophisticated that you want to do with it is going to have to go through probably a developer. Likewise, any third-party applications that have to go through multiple systems, there's a possibility that Flow is going to work for you, but it's much more likely that you're going to need a more robust tool. So it really depends on the business process, how many people that business process needs to touch, and whether or not those people are within your organization, particularly if part of the process needs to touch people outside of your Office 365 environment. You might need to investigate some more sophisticated tools.
Okay, great. And will this work with on-prem?
No, the Flow is currently only available in Office 365. So there, you could, I haven't tried sending to a SharePoint site on premise from my Flow, so that would be definitely something to try. But the actual application itself is only available in an Office 365 environment. So setting up any flows, you'd have to have an Office 365 account.
Okay. Okay, great. I think that's all the questions. If you have any other questions, we'll stay on the line for another minute for you to get those in. Again, we will be posting the recording on our YouTube channel. I will send out that recording link. And then if anyone would like to learn more about Office 365, we do tons of webinars and events throughout the year, so check back and check out our events calendar to keep up with all of our events, including our annual conference that is in May, where we will be holding 2 Office 365 full-day workshops. Thank you, Maggie, for the great presentation.
Thanks.
And thanks, everyone, for attending today's webinar. I hope you have a happy holiday and a great new year.
Great. Thank you.